All right, good morning, everybody. Today is November 17th. It's Sunday morning. We're doing it online. I'm not feeling too well. I'm not in the entertaining mood. I'm just in the deliver the message, okay? Mood. So that's what we're going to do. But before I get started with our service, with our sermon, what God has given to us, let's all pray. My Heavenly Father, I just want to praise you and thank you for the glory and the majesty you have shown us this day by awakening us to your day, for all the mercy and the grace shines in all creation, and all the goodness of your love for your people has opened the way to give us another chance to walk before you, to look at the needs of our fellow men, to understand ourselves through your eyes, my Lord, that we may become better vessels, my Lord, useful to the kingdom and for your glory. So, Lord, as your servant, put your words upon my lips, and I may speak your truth to your people, and open the eyes of their heart, my Lord, that they may see the truth within your words, that they may reflect and they may relate, but most of all, they may see the escape, my Lord, that you offer them, the changes that can come. But I pray, my Lord, that your word will touch the hearts of everyone, not only here but far, that their ears will be awakened to the truth, and that you will be glorified for all that comes of it. For you are more worthy than we can even fathom, that we even understand and know. So teach us, O Lord, thy ways, that we may walk in your truths, always your truths, for your truths are law written upon our heart, and you are worthy. So thank you, my Lord, for all that you're about to speak. Glory belongs to you always. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Wow, that was heartfelt. Anyway, so as I opened my word, there was a lot of things that was coming up. There was a lot of things that was coming up prior to this word. And most of it was about the watchman, about watching what you do, your work. Like in Ezekiel 33, we're not going to be there. But I ended there like twice, but it wasn't, it was like the watchman, but it was like not about the job, but the nature. And the nature of us and the nature of God's love for his people. There's a nature, and his love should be our love. So as I started to go beyond that, I ended up in Genesis. So let's go to Genesis chapter 19. And we're going to talk from verse 12. I got it from 12 to 29. But I'm going to be stopping instead of reading the whole thing. I'm going to read and then stop and then do what we do, okay? This is about Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. Now, when I got here, I stopped and I looked at it, I was like, and immediately what he told me about the watchman came in, and I kind of saw the connection. So I had to read and I had to follow, and let's see what he says. So let's start from verse 12. Sodom and Gomorrah, heads up. Abraham had prayed for Lot and had asked God, would you destroy if there was, 30, 20, even 10 righteous people? Because he was thinking about Lot, and God knew this, that he was thinking about Lot and his family. But God knew this. He said, even if there is. But when the angels got there, the servants of the Lord got there, it's like they were unable to be redeemed. Their actions proved that they could not be redeemed, right? Because the choices that they made and the things they wanted to do it defiled them. It came out of their heart, them wanting the angels, right? So Lot ends up pulling them into his home to protect them. So now that the angels have seen the hearts of men, and they were still wicked, even though these people knew that these men were of God, and even if Lot told them, they still wanted to treat them as if they were men for the taking, right? And they had no respect for God or God's servants. So we come in verse 12. We come in verse 12 of chapter 19 of Genesis. He says, then the men of God said to Lot, have you anyone else here, son-in-law or sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Take them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out, spoke to his sons-in-laws, who had married his daughters, and said, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But to his sons-in-laws, he seemed to be joking. When the morning dawned, the angel urged Lot to hurry, saying, arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. Let's stop. So they gave him warning. They gave him warning. They told him what must be done, what's going to happen, right? So he needed to gather, but his sons-in-laws wouldn't, but the daughters were with him. So now the angels are saying there is no redemption in the city. Even though they know God's presence is here, they still disrespect God. They still ignore God's will and God's grace to come here and try to save this city. So they're being told what must be done. Now it's time to destroy. They had their chance. Lot made an effort to get the sons-in-laws. Everything is in order. It's time. Okay. So now that it's time. So he's telling them, hurry up, because the timing of God is always perfect. So we come here into verse 16 when we hear that they said, hurry, right? Lot, hurry. Lot, hurry up, right? Because it's time to go. The punishment is coming. And then we come into verse 16. Now listen to verse 16. It says, and while he lingered, and I stopped. The urgency in the angels, the urgency in what's about to happen. They know what God wants to do, and he's lingering. Now, lingering is about you staying in the same place. It's kind of like you're reluctant to leave. You're reluctant for some reason to leave. Maybe you're thinking about somebody. Maybe you're thinking about your stuff. There's a reluctancy to leave. Yeah, you're reluctant, right? You don't want to leave. That's why you linger. For some reason, or maybe you don't know if you really want to leave. Maybe there's something where you're at or something that you're doing right now that's causing you to stay here because maybe it's unfinished business. Who knows? For some reason, God is saying you need to get out of this quickly. But you're the one lingering. Yeah, you're the one that's staying in place, and you're the one too reluctant to leave this, to leave these stuffs, to leave these fears, to leave whatever that keeps you still. You're reluctant to leave it, even if God says you need to hurry up and get out of here. You're still reluctant. Okay. And then he goes on, he says, and while he lingered because he's reluctant to leave, the men of God had to take him by his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his two daughters, and the Lord being merciful to him. Look at this. God was being kind because Lot is trying and testing him now by lingering after everything. He is lingering. He's reluctant after all that they had just did, all that they have said, and all that they said is going to be coming. You linger still yet. So God being merciful, knowing that you're lingering, knowing what is keeping you here, he takes you guys all by the hand and takes you guys outside of the city. Yeah. He takes the Lord being merciful to him, right? Took him by the hand, his daughters and his wife, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. Okay, because the city gonna get destroyed. Not only the city, but all the plains. Okay, all the plains. Because this is God making a way of escape. By showing you and helping you and him knowing what's making you reluctant and making a way of escape by pulling you and showing you that there is freedom, that there is truth ahead. But you're in your walls. This is the walls of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? You're still inside. Sodom and Gomorrah represents those kind of the nature, the desires of men, reluctant to leave it and get out of the city. Yeah, get out of this thing that has hedged you in, where everybody else follows, where everybody is the same within. Yeah, and many people go in by that way. They live such a life confined, and they become reluctant to leave because of uncertainty. Even though God says, even though God does, even though he shows up, you still reluctant, but yet we can sit and testify. Oh, God gave me a dream, and God, I had a vision, and then we can testify to all those things, and we still reluctant to leave. We're still reluctant to leave. So God, being merciful, knowing this, takes you and puts you outside. Says, here, I made a way of escape. You can get out of this wall. You can get out of here. But you must stand outside. You must be able to step away from this wall. You must be able to get past this wall. And God is the only one who can get you past that wall. He takes you by the hand. He leads you right out to the front and say, here, you're no longer captive. You're no longer subject, right? You should not be reluctant to continue. So let's start from here. But guess what happens? The nature always has a way of kicking in, right? So while he lingered and they pulled him out, they took him by the hand, being merciful. Verse 17 comes in. He said, so it came to pass when they had brought them outside that he said, the man of God, escape for your life. Escape for your life. Do Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in this plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. Okay, let's stop for a second. First thing he says, escape for your life. Because God takes you this far, gets you out of your hindrances, gets you past your own barriers, your own limitations, your own walls. And he puts you here and says, okay, start a new life. You're on your own, boo. Go for it. You know what I have done. You know what I am doing for you. Now run. Keep going. Keep going, right? And this is the run for your life. Escape. And escape is about break loose from your confinements. Break loose from that which binds you. In other words, it says, get free of it. Go on. Because God brought you this far. The walls of Sodom and Gomorrah cannot keep you in. And that's like the nature, right? Just because there's part of your nature, it doesn't have to confine you. You have to find a way, but by knowing what God is doing, took you, being merciful, taking you by the hand and leading you past yourself, that from this point you run, you keep going, that race of faith, you just keep going. But you must, the only way you can is if you are led and guided by God. And that's what the angels do. What they do is they come and they put him outside the gate and they tell him, run for your life. And they tell him, do not look back. Do not look behind you. So don't look back from where you came, because the moment you do, you're back in the city kind of thing, right? Because you become a part of what's there. God is saying you got to keep going forward. You just got to keep going. You cannot stop and you cannot linger. Yeah, you cannot be reluctant to leave. Do not look behind you. Do not look at what you're leaving behind. Do not look at what you think you left behind. Do not look at what used to be, because it'll be no more. Consider it from this day forward destroyed, because that was the sinful life. That was the past, destroyed. You can't do anything about it. It's written, done. Looking back ain't going to change it. But looking back will rebuild it in you. You will become a part of it again. You get that? And that's why he says, escape from here. Break loose. This is your confinement, but now we have set you free. Now go, break loose, go, keep running. Hold on to what you have with God, right? Be free of this that once confined you, Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Lot, we put you here, you are free. No wall, no hesitation, except one. Yeah. So they gave him, he says, do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in this plain, anywhere near this city. Do not escape, break loose, be free. That's what he says. Escape to the mountains, because the mountains is your freedom. In other words, that mountain is what you got to climb. That mountain, you got to get to the top, because that's going to take you to your true freedom. It's like the stairway to heaven, right? You just got to keep going. And when you're finally out of the plane, right, getting over yourself, then you can reach higher levels. But you got to keep going through the plane. You cannot reach higher levels if you keep making excuses, if you keep lingering where you are. You ain't going to go very far in the plane. Because the plane gets destroyed with Sodom. I want to call this, it's kind of, to me, complacency. That you take your time, that you walk in this walk, because this is the walk that you're learning. This is the walk that you grow in. This is the walk that you learn to endure and persevere. That's why he says you got to go all the way to the mountain, because you got to learn to endure this new life. You got to learn to persevere over what's behind you. You got to learn to turn away from it. You got to learn to endure. You got to learn to persevere, but you're still reluctant to leave. And that's why he says you're going to have to break free, escape. Escape from here. Set yourself free, right? Set yourself free. Break loose. You have confined yourself in Sodom and Gomorrah, and God gave you a way out. Now go free. Escape, okay? And this is what they tell them. Escape to the mountains, because you got to get to the top. You got to get to the top. You got to get away from this complacency. You got to get away from this slow moving, because everything's going to go. Everything in the plane is going to, anything connected to this. But when you hit the mountain, this is when you start to climb. This is when you start to climb. But when you're outside the gate, it's a race to that climb. You got to get there first. You got to understand. You got to know you're going to see yourself for who you are. And so he said, this is going to be destroyed. But Lot said to him, please, no, Lord. And I just stopped. Because this is when you realize you have the freedom and you don't know what to do with it. When God says what must be done in order to get to higher ground, in order to be free of the pool of Sodom and Gomorrah on the plain, because that's what it is. It's a pool, right? It's like a temptation. The nature of man is in those walls. And so, but Lot is making an excuse. The excuse comes because a lot of times we only know what we know in Sodom and Gomorrah. But when we're free, we don't know how to be free. We don't know how to be free because we become so accustomed to the way we do things that we don't know how to become free of the things that we've always done. But he's not asking you to change who you are. He's asking you to know for yourself that you can be free of that because he helped you. That was his mercy. And he took you out of your bondage, took you out of your confinement, gave you the revelations and said, from here we escape. We move. We break loose from this moment forward. But from this moment forward, you're still reluctant to break loose because breaking loose is on you. It's not on God. He brought you out of the wall. He set you free of your confinements and limitations. And he put you outside the wall. It's up to us to walk it, to break it, to run. Yeah. He gave us instruction and that's his guidance. Now we have to run, escape to the mountain. But what we do when we realize what God is asking and how far we have to go, we do like God and we say, no, Lord, that's asking much. That is hard. That is hard. It's hard to do. I can't live up to that. I can't go that far with you. So you're kind of telling God, I can't really escape. I don't know how to be free. I don't know how to be free. I don't know how to get there where you want me to be. So I can't do it your way. And you tell God, no, Lord, that's too hard for me. I don't know how to do it. And that's why you say that. No, Lord, I can't escape, you know. But this is when we start showing, this is when Lot's fears truly start showing. Yeah. And that fear is a part of Sodom and Gomorrah. But now that he's free, he doesn't know how to not be afraid, right? Maybe that's all he knew in Sodom and Gomorrah, trying to protect his family and everything, always in fear of what somebody might do to them, you know. Now he has to stop and know there's no protecting any of them. But the choices you make since I brought you outside the gate. Because everybody outside the gate, him, his wife, and his 2 daughters had the same instructions. Everybody escape to the mountains. Everybody escape to the mountains. Do not linger, right? Do not stay anywhere in the plain. Go to the mountain because we are destroying anything connected to this. The plain. Anything that makes you complacent. Anything that is not, his will to keep will be destroyed. And the plain is one of them. When Lot says, no, Lord, please, his excuse in verse 19 is, indeed, now your servant has found favor in your sight, because he's acknowledging the mercy of bringing him out. And that's what we do. We thank God for the deliverance. We thank God for bringing us out of our confinement, out of Sodom and Gomorrah. We thank him, and we see the favor of God because that's his mercy. He could have just made us say, go that way, make us walk ourselves. But he brought us by the hand and he brought us and set us free from ourselves, right? And we understand that and we know that's the favor of God because it's nothing that Lot had asked for. It's what God was doing, that extending the favor of Abraham, the love of Abraham that he had as his friend, that favor onto Lot because Abraham loved Lot. And God loved Abraham and God loved Lot. So it's like we can, because that's your blood, because your concern is with him, not Sodom and Gomorrah, just him and his family, because his family, I will help him. God did this on his own. Abraham didn't ask, though he was insinuating 30, what if 20, what if 10 of them? Yeah, but he's not saying Lot. But he's thinking it and God knows his thoughts, right? But Lot, indeed, your servant has found favor. Look at all that favor. Look at all that mercy that God talks to somebody about you and that person helps. What favor? God can bring somebody to take you from your dark pit and bring you out of your limitations and set you on a place of freedom and truth. You see the favor of God. And you can see why God did it for you because he loves you. in your sight. He says, indeed, now your servant has found favor in your sight because you showed me mercy, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life, by taking us out of there, by taking us by the hand and forcing me out of my complacency, forcing me out of my reluctancy to leave. This is what he's acknowledging, right? He hasn't even started running yet, and he's already negotiating with the angels, okay? And he tells him, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountain lest something evil overtake me and I die. Let's stop for a second. I read this and I was like, do you not know who you're standing with? Did you not hear any word that he said? The angels of God. They were the ones who pulled you out of Sodom and Gomorrah. They the ones told you this place was going to get destroyed. They were the ones who blinded everybody so you guys could walk out. These are the angels who pulled you from where you were to where you're at now in your new life. These that God has sent, right? These. And you're trying to compromise where God wants you to go because you can't see it in you. I cannot escape to the mountain lest some evil overtake me. These are the angels of the Most High giving him mercy and grace. And he's worried about evil overtaking him, destruction, after they told him what he must do. But the reason he's doing this, right? Because he said, lest some evil overtake me, meaning his own fears and doubts come back in because he has to go so fast and so furious that, he got to get to the mountain. He's unable to keep himself. He's unable to hold himself because fear and doubt is going to start coming in about where he needs to be, where he needs to go with God. And that's what happens. You guys get to a place and you understand and know that you guys are compromising because of how intense it may be. He wants you to go from outside the gate, your new freedom, and escape to the mountain that can start your climb to the kingdom, right? You got to get out of this plane, this complacency, this like everybody else, and you need to learn to climb. So the deal is, if you can't get out of this, are you still not the same place as everybody else? But that got to be destroyed. But because you feel that you're going to do that, and he's going to destroy everything on the plane, that you're maybe not fast enough, or maybe you're not good enough, or maybe, right? So you're going to get caught up in your indecisions, I guess, and your inability, your reluctancy to change, your reluctancy to move forward. Because in a way, you're still in the same place. You're still lingering, refusing to leave it. Isn't that what's about? God is asking of you and you're compromising it because you're still reluctant to leave. That's the evil. That if you're reluctant, that the fear and the doubt of whatever might cause you to look back. You're reluctant, right? Even if God spoke, even if God gave and told you to escape and what he was going to do, you think some evil can overtake you after God told you this. Because fear is starting to speak. He's still part of that. It's still part of his nature. It's like he still can't trust because he's afraid. He cannot. He said, but I cannot escape to the mountain. I can't do what you're asking me, Lord. That's too hard. It takes somebody who can go all the way over there. But I can't. I'm not good enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not wise enough. I'm not sharp enough, whatever it may be, right? He has an excuse, and he thinks that if he thinks this way for us as Christians, we find our freedom in God. And he says, escape, keep going, run this race all the way to the mountain so you can start your true climb with God. Because this is about the breaking of the nature. Now that you're no longer confined to your old nature, this true nature must come in. So now you have to move forward and get to the mountain so you can start a true climb to the kingdom. Because this is where the nature gets exposed. And this is where you leave the dead bones behind. You get that? Old nature, you're over the wall. Now you got to move forward in God. But this is how you're going to discover who you truly are in the plane. But he wants to destroy the plane so you don't have any chance of going back to that nature. But we make excuses just like Lot. We think that, well, maybe panic, worry, whatever it may be, might kick in and you become like everybody else. But he said, see now, and he keeps talking to them, right? He's literally saying, I can't get free of this. I'm having a hard time. Yeah, I cannot escape this. But he tells them, see now, get this. Verse 20, see now, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Please let me escape there. It is a little one, and my soul shall live. And he said, see, I have favored you concerning this thing also, in that I will not overthrow this city from which you have spoken. Let's stop for a second, because he's asked to escape to the mountain and he's compromising to go halfway. See the city right there? And when he says it's a little one, it means it's an insignificant city. It would have gotten destroyed with Sodom and Gomorrah. But because he doesn't want to go all the way, he's kind of want to go halfway, because that's what he feels he can do. God is allowing it. If that's all you can do, then get there. I'm going to wait till you get there, because this is what you said you were going to do. Because you won't do what I ask you. I ask you to go to the mountain. You're reluctant to do that. You're reluctant to step into that race. But you're willing to step into the one that you prepare for God. The one that you said, I know you're doing this, but you also know that I'm struggling and I'm fearful and I'm doubtful. So can I go at least up to here? It's funny because he says that, the little one, which is an insignificant, it means insignificant, which is like, if you go there, then that's an insignificant step to get closer to God, because you're still doing what you want to do. You're just going to do it somewhere else, a little further out of that, but still the nature is having say. That's when the man of God says, see, I have favored you concerning this. Because why? Because he still sees the fear, still sees the doubt, the reluctancy. This is God. He still sees it, because bringing him out of Sodom and Gomorrah, putting him in the front was insufficient enough for Lot to trust. And how many things have God done that brought you out of yourself and before and set you on a new path? But because of the race, because of the requirement, you're reluctant to run it. Yeah. So eventually you're pulled back because the forward movement isn't there. The complacency in the plane has dragged you back to a nature and has put you, and you have made an insignificant step into getting closer to God, because he wants to destroy the plane, which is complacency. And then you go over there, you move from here, deliverance, to the house of complacency there, the insignificant step there, because that's all you're kind of willing to do. It's kind of like that. And the angel, that God can see this reluctancy. God can see this doubt. God can see this inability to trust him after all he had done. That's why he says, see, and he said, see, I have favored you concerning this thing, in that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Because why? Because I can sense your fear. I can see it. I can feel it. So I won't do that. I won't make you afraid, and I'm letting you know I will not overthrow that city. So don't be afraid. Hurry. He says, so if that's what you want to do, hurry up. Get on with it, people. It's time to run the race. Escape to there. Escape there. Go to the place that you want to go, the place that you have set with God. If this is all you're wanting to do, then at least meet that. At least get there. But instead, it's always, you end up back in Sodom and Gomorrah, and the angels got to put you back outside, and you got to start new, because there's no real forward movement. And you got into the place where it feels like you're not really growing. That's because you keep going back there. You keep bringing that along, and it's hindering you. And God has showed you enough favor for your insignificant steps to not destroy you. At least he made something happen. He's helping you by giving you what you want, right? He's not going to give you more than you can handle. He may ask for it, but if your heart, I had talked to them about this yesterday, about God doesn't give you more than you can handle. It's not about the weight or the troubles. It's about the spirit within. The spirit within the man can handle whatever God asks. The strength of that spirit is determined on the nature of the man. So if the nature, is not so bound to the Spirit of God, then it's the effort of doing God's will, which takes full effort. You'll have the inability to fulfill that. So you can only do insignificant steps, because that's all you can do. And you do it little by little by little by little, insignificant steps. And then you expect God, don't destroy me, don't destroy me, don't destroy me. That's his verse saying. He understands you're doing that. He knows you're taking the slow road. He knows you're afraid of stepping up. He knows that you cannot endure to get to the mountain. You cannot trust him till all the way there. You cannot endure. You cannot persevere. But you want to run. And that's where you want to go. So God's going to let you go there. God's going to let you go there. But once you get there, once you get there, God's will is going to be done because you're fulfilling what you said you were going to do. You're going to head there. It's insignificant to what God wanted. Hey, but if that's all you want to do and that's all you can handle, I will allow it. This is what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Hurry, escape there. Yeah, break loose from here and get to where you said, from the confinement, from thinking you got to go all the way there, that which confines you to. Let go of that thinking and go where you said you wanted to go. If you want to go there, go there. At least you're moving forward a little bit, right? Hurry, then do it. Escape there. Because I cannot do anything until you arrive there. So the angels of God says, you have to do this. God is holding us back until you get there. And he would have held back until you got to the mountain. He would have. Or he would have given you the strength and the speed to endure the distance. But we didn't give that to him because God understands why we're like this. He's so smart. For I can do nothing until you get to there. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar, which means insignificant. Yeah, insignificant. Continue reading. So it's kind of like that. Well, God asks of what you're willing to do. He asks us to go so far, but in the end, it's going to be what you're willing to do. Because he cannot force you unless he knows the spirit of the person can go all the way. Yeah, but he'll lay it before us. You can get into the kingdom. Everybody's offering it, right? The kingdom of heaven. And say that is the mountain. But you got to get over yourself through the plain. He understands the struggle and understands the fears and the doubts in the plain. Because it's plain to see. But that's what God is saying. But these insignificant steps, even though you go to Zoar, which means insignificant, which is from Sodom and Gomorrah, isn't too far away. And that's all you're willing to do, it's better than being where you used to be. So I will allow that. I will let you. But you start everything from there. You don't go back there. You start everything from Zoar, from your insignificant steps, and you make a few more insignificant steps, and before you know it, you'll be at the mountain, right? Hopefully, right? So let's continue reading. In 23, the sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. So he had just entered in. The morning sun had just risen, right? The morning sun had just risen. And this city, which was near, right? Where am I? Oh, I'm in 23. I'm completely not even here. Then then the Lord rained down because now he was safe in Zoar. And he said he wouldn't destroy anything as long as he wasn't there. And he would protect that city that he was in. And the Lord rained down brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah and from the Lord out of heaven. He destroyed it. So he overthrew in total devastation. He devastated those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. And they were entering Zoar the moment God did that. And he said, do not look back. And that insignificant step was insignificant for his wife in verse 26. 26, but his wife looked back behind him and she became a pillar of salt. And it's like, she was right there, but her heart, was reluctant to leave there. Something back there was still in her. Something back there moved her. Immediately when she looked back, she became a part of it. She's going to stay right there. She's going to stay right there. And that's the pillar of salt. And the salt is representing the season. We have been learning from Lot's wife ever since, haven't we? Because she is right there. And this is what happens when you're right there, close to God, close to the kingdom, and then you turn. Pillar of salt. Everybody going to learn from you. She looked back because it was still in her. She was reluctant to leave, but he was maybe, and when you look at it, if she was reluctant to leave, God knew it wasn't only Lot who was reluctant. She was reluctant, and maybe the daughters. Everybody was fearful, and everybody was reluctant to leave. I mean, the sons-in-laws to his daughters was still in there. We make all kind of excuses not to stand up for God. Because we look at ourselves and we We always look at our weakness. Like Lot, he said, I can't go that far. Maybe I cannot run that far. I cannot be that fast. I'm not that committed. Whatever it may be, your steps have been a little insignificant to the will of God. So God, in his mercy and grace and all-knowingness, gives you what you can handle. If that's it, then that's fine with him. But because of what he had done, the day of your deliverance, when he pulled you out of the darkness of Sodom and Gomorrah and set you be, that you are no longer subject, and set you on the other side of the wall and laid freedom before you, yeah, and said, now run and endure, yeah, meet me on the mountain kind of thing, right? Run and keep going. Part of those fears still linger. We don't know how to be free. We don't know how to be free. We don't know how to trust God. We don't know. And even if we've left the old nature, that nature still influences us. And that's us looking back like Lot's wife. Because we're always looking back, always trying to, you cannot change it. Sodom and Gomorrah has been destroyed. That old life, that old nature, that old things that happened is gone, people. But for some reason, you keep resurrecting it. You keep bringing it back to life. Keep thinking about what daddy, keep thinking about mommy, keep thinking about the past when I was in school, come on, people. Let's move on, man. Those things made us who we are today. Yes, they are a hindrance too. But if you look to the word, you will find that like this. Yeah, you will find that truth. You don't have to always look back and refill and, re-energize something that is long dead. In the word of God, it'll make you reflect, but he will be the strength that gives you the strength to see it because he's showing it to you. That's his mercy and his grace. His wife, even though she was offered all the freedom, that Lot and the two wives are going to, the mercy and the grace of God at the door, just like with us, at the door of the kingdom, we'll turn back because the truth will be known. You cannot enter in because your heart is still there. Your heart is still there. And that's why Lot's wife, she became this pillar of salt. And that's why Jesus had used that, right? In chapter 18. In chapter 18 of Luke, he talked about, where is it? Where am I? Oh, am I at the wrong page? Am I in Luke? 17? Luke 17. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong page. Luke 17, 26. Jesus is talking about the coming of the Son of Man. And that's kind of what's happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. The Son of Man has come to set the righteous free, to take them out of Sodom and Gomorrah and bring them to a new place. But we must endure and we must run. And when the coming of the Son of Man, when God comes and receives, this is what he's going to see, where we are at. Yeah? But we think he's going to do something. But listen to what he says. I'm not going to read the whole thing, only from verse 26. After he talks about it. But on verse 26, he comes in and he says, and as it was in the days of Noah, okay, that's not the one, 27. So it will also be in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives. They were given to marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all, meaning that God had closed the ark. No one could enter after that. And the moment Lot them had left the city, it's like the door was closed. Everybody inside that going to get destroyed. Everybody who was outside the ark was going to get destroyed. But he comes in and he says, flood came and destroyed them all. 28. This is where I kind of want to start. He said, likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot. Okay. Sodom and Gomorrah, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. They just lived their life any way that they wanted to, without remorse, without concern for your fellow man. It's what I want to do. That's why it was a deprived place. Everybody did whatever they wanted. And there was no law. There was no justice. These men of Sodom and Gomorrah tried to take the men of God. That's how depraved it was. And they found no fault because they were all joined together by other men and they all wanted a share. How depraved have we become? And he delivers us from that depravity and puts us in a new place. But we're so afraid. But don't you see, he delivered you from such depravity of this world. So why would we turn back to that depraved state, that blind state, that hurt state? Why would we go back there? That's why he brings us up. Likewise, as a day in Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built, they did whatever they wanted to do. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom and Gomorrah, when he left that place and entered his outside the gate, when he entered outside the gate and did his step according to his desire or his ability, God's will to end up at Zoar, is when God rained down fire and brimstone and from heaven and destroyed them all, because that was judgment. They refused to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. They refused to step outside that wall because they refused to turn, refused to change. They weren't going any further because they choose not to. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. The day that he comes, will he find true faith? Will he find someone fighting against the evils, trying to help their fellow man? Because that's what Lot was trying to do. Don't do this to them. Take my daughters. He said he was trying to save God's men. You know what I mean? He was trying to save by trying to protect them and willing to sacrifice his daughters in the process to save this man. And for us, when God is revealed to us, what are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to? He was willing to give his daughters. And so when the Son of Man is revealed, is he going to find you in the wall or outside? And outside is a shaky thing too, because in the plane is complacency. Did you make it to Zoar? Did you fulfill your little vows to God, your little insignificant steps? Can you even do that? I'm going to trust you, Lord, and then you don't trust him. I'm going to love you, Lord, and then you reject him. Little stuff like that. They're all little insignificant steps that you cannot see that you might be failing. You don't even keep your word. You know? And that's kind of sad. And that's why he says, that's why in the day when the Son of Man is revealed, where you're at is where you're going to be. Don't you want to be found on the mountain? You don't want to get stuck in the plane. Everything will get destroyed there. But can you at least fulfill the steps, the insignificant, these little steps that you're trying to do to get closer to God? Can't you at least live up to those? You know, they're not practices and they're not works. They're a change within you. Instead of doing it that way all the time, you stand in a new place. Do it differently. Even if it's insignificant to God, because it's not really his will, he's giving you your ability to do it. So he's not forcing you, but he's telling his desire, I want you with me. Get to the mountain and we be good, right? Because there's so much other, but in a way too, because of your little steps, you're hurting other people. And that's why things must change. So when going back to Luke chapter 17, he says, even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed, you're going to see exactly where you're at, what side of the wall you stand. Let me tell you, right? In that day, listen to what he says. In that day, who is he who is on the rooftop and his goods are in the house, let him not come down and take them away. Because why? Because this is you looking back. The day that you see the Lord and you get the revelation, let not your thoughts, your heart, your mind, or your consciousness turn to what's in the house. Because the moment it's turned, it shows your heart is far from God. It's about your desires. And I know. And part of faith is about trusting God. Not only about trusting God for yourself, but trusting God for everything you have and everyone that you know. To be fearful for them is not to let God do his perfect work. Trust in God. You got to learn to trust God and endure. They got to learn to trust God too. They got to see the truth too, you know. But when he's revealed in that day, if you're on the housetop and God, the Lord comes, will your consciousness immediately be aware of what you're leaving behind? Will it be? When God asks you to move forward, is there a consciousness of looking at what you're going to change and what you're going to leave behind? Instead of what you're going to do, a forward movement, you look at what you're going to leave behind. And you try to go get it and take it along for some reason. I'm not sure. I don't know how you can do that, because the moment you step down, let him not come down and take away. And likewise, the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. And if you're out and about, do not worry. Do not be concerned. The Lord is here. Enter in. Enter in. Hold on. Because every forward movement is about the steps of God. God sees every step. He knows this. So and he also knows when you turn back. And the moment you turn back, 32, remember Lot's wife? You're right down the verge. The Lord has appeared. You see him in the clouds, ready to grab you. And you go, but my wife, but my children, you teach them well. So when the Lord appears, you look, they look. Tell them, don't look away. When the Lord calls, says, here I am. That's what Eli told Samuel. Because Samuel kept looking at when he was a kid, right? Training to be a prophet. Samuel. He ran to Eli. Here I am. You called me. No. Samuel. Ran to Eli. Here I am. You called me. And then he perceived that God, he says, the next time you hear your name, say, here I am, Lord. And next time he heard Samuel, he says, here I am, Lord. And God spoke. God spoke. He didn't turn back to Eli. He stood and he listened and he looked. He stayed there in this place of calm. He stayed there and he accepted who he was talking to, that will at that moment. And God spoke to him. He didn't turn back to Eli, didn't turn. And this is what we do. We always turning back, whether it's people, places, things. He's saying, don't turn back, because the moment you do, remember Lot's wife, you have just become that, because you couldn't keep your eye on the Lord, your focus, your awareness that he is here and he's been here ever since with you, but you still don't see it. So you keep being Lot's wife. You keep turning back because you haven't come to that he is here. He is in your life. He is in the Word. He is the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. And every word you speak is the voice of God. Hear yourself. Know yourself. Yeah. And look, if you do know, if you do understand, if you do see, then look at the steps you've been taking towards that mountain. Have they been insignificant too? Because sometimes when you do things insignificantly, like Lot's wife, too close to see. It's too close to see. Why did God take the children of Israel through the Red Sea? Because if he went the other way around, it was too close to Egypt. They could turn back and look. So he went away through the sea that there was no way of going back. No way of going back. But their hearts were still there. No matter what God did, their heart was still in Egypt. For some reason, they thought it was good. And so he says, remember Lot's wife. Because isn't that we're reluctant? And that's what he says. We can even if you see the Lord, you're reluctant to hold on to that. Lot's wife, even if she knew freedom was there and she knew destruction was coming, her heart still turned because of what she thought she left behind, what she thought was there. Her heart was there. Where your treasure is, right? Where your heart is, there your treasure shall be. And there it was in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. She became that pillar, right? So, like Lot, you are reluctant to leave too. You're reluctant. Yeah, your reluctance to leave, reluctant to go forward, reluctant to do his will, right? You're reluctant. Maybe you're unwilling to act, your unwillingness to move forward. Last night in men's fellowship, Jay called it a rebellion. It is. It's the reluctancy, the lingering of where you're at, that's keeping you from not accepting the truth or a truth that moves you forward. You keep judging where you're at based on who you think you are. But they moved you out, right? They moved out. That's why, remember Lot's wife. So when we find ourselves, when you continue, it says, if you are not willing to let go of this life, right? If you're not willing to let go of this life, because you see the Lord before you, right? If you're not willing to let go of this life and all the goods that make up your confidence, and you are not willing to go all the way to fulfill the will of God, I would consider this lingering. I would consider this lingering. You linger. You linger, right? And when you linger, you're reluctant to move forward. What's keeping you from moving forward? He brought you out of the city. He gave you a new start. He let you do what you want to do. And you still look back. And maybe that's why he keeps repeating. Because he's telling you, you're just like Lot's wife. And maybe that needs to change. That's why you got to remember Lot's wife. Who else had this problem? If you take a look just on the same chapter 18 of Luke in the same book, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but look at this. It's the rich young ruler. Didn't he have that same problem? He had that same problem. He wanted to inherit eternal life. He wanted something more and greater. And he knew what he had was insufficient, but he had left that way of thinking to ask the Lord this insignificant stuff to change. So he asked the Lord, what must I do to inherit eternal life? So he tells him, you're doing all of these things. Do the commandments. Yeah, do everything. And he says, I have kept from my youth. And we've been doing this ever since the way we've been doing things. We've been doing it ever since we found the Lord. The same way. Just like a little kid. We've been doing it since our youth. The same way. It hasn't evolved. It hasn't changed. It's still the same way. So it's from the same mindset, the same heart. But he feels like watching Jesus and watching what's happening and knowing what's happening with him, that his one feels a little empty, doesn't it? That there's more to a relationship with God, because no one can do that unless God is with him. There's more to our relationship with God than just the law. There's got to be more to it. That's why he's asking, there's got to be more. All these things I give, there's got to be more. Jesus said to him in verse 22, so when Jesus heard these things, he said, you still lack one thing. Sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. And come follow me, because his heart was still on all his goods, still in Sodom and Gomorrah, still thinking about what he had, and like Lot's wife, what he lost, what he would lose. You understand? That's why it's like that. The rich young ruler goes sorrowful because he had much riches. And when we look at, where we look, how we turn, it's going to show us where our treasure lies, where our heart is. Pride, ego, you won't even know until that day. Honestly, I believe what I have with God. I trust in everything I have. And yet I feel like I still don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be saved. I'm striving for that salvation daily, because you never know when you're going to have a bad day. You never know the day he's going to call you home, and you never know if you actually went all the way until you face that. So why not try going all the way? Why not try it? Because you tried everything else and it's been insignificant to your growth. You keep looking back and you don't relate to Lot's wife, so you don't see that you're kind of stuck. A cycle that you keep falling into because you keep thinking the same. You keep doing the same thing. You've not moved forward. You have not escaped from Sodom and Gomorrah. You're still in the walls. That's why you can still look back. You may not be there physically, but the consciousness is, the awareness is. And that's spiritual. And God don't take the body, he takes the spirit, right? It's all about the spirit, the truth. Spirit and truth. And the truth is, by your spirit, by looking back, right? Thinking about what you're leaving behind, thinking about maybe people, anything. When you see the Lord, focus, people. Focus on the Lord when you see him. Let everything else go. Find that place of calm and balance with the Lord and see him for the truth, and let everything else go. Focus on the Lord in not the manner of, I'm going to do God's will, I'm going to do God's will. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say focus, have an awareness, a consciousness to him. By the things you say and the things that you do, the words that come out of my mouth is testifying to my conscious and awareness of God. Even me doing this today is about consciousness and awareness about God's will, what he wants. And so I have to find this place of balance, right? Of balance within me, and let everything go, because I'm not feeling well, letting everything go so he can deliver a message to somebody who needs to learn that you have to move forward. You have to let go, because he's exposing everybody. Sodom and Gomorrah is about to be destroyed. That's complete exposure. And he's giving us all a chance. He took us by the hand. He puts us, like Lot puts us outside of the, and says, now let's do this. And we make excuses all along the way. And we make insignificant movements after 20 years. I mean, come on, you're not running anymore. You're pretty much crawling like a child, slowly. and also deliberately, because you're reluctant. You're reluctant. Yeah. That's sorrowful in the rich young ruler is because he's reluctant to let go. You lack one thing, freedom. You lack the understanding of your own freedom. And you give yourself to what you know, which is your bondage. That's why you keep looking back at Egypt. That's why God does it that way, the Red Sea, right? So that they, even if they thought about Egypt, they couldn't go back because the way was blocked by the ocean. But we still think about it. We still hold on to it. We still find judgments in it. We're reluctant to let it go. We become sorrowful for being like that when he realized what Jesus is asking. You lack the love for God to endure. You lack something within yourself to continue, to let go, to accept the escape he has given you time and time again. You're afraid, you're reluctant. And I understand that. But trying to show us his way to, he's trying to show us this is escape. This is the way. His way of escaping. Go to the mountain. Don't stop. That's his way. The only way you can overcome is if you just keep going. Keep going. Even if you make an insignificant, you trip, you fall, get up and head for the mountains. You're heading for a kingdom. You still got to do the climb. You can't even run the race and you think you're climbing. You got to get past yourself so you can reach, right, the epiphany of a true, deep relationship with God. You have one now. He's cheering you on. He's giving you your track. He told you what you cannot do, right? You got to go. You got to do it. You can do this. But if there is to break loose of his confinement, this sorrowful in relationship, this man, this rich young ruler, for him to break free of his confinement to the laws, he must leave the law. In order to be free, you must leave your laws. You must leave your nature. You must leave your old thoughts. You must leave it and keep moving forward. This is a new beginning. Don't keep doing it the old way. It shows that you're not going to change, right? You lack one thing, just one thing, the revelation that you're reluctant. You think you're doing it. Examine yourself. Yeah, examine yourself. Do not be afraid. Yeah, escape this life. Escape for your life, people. He delivered you from yourself. Now, run this race like you escaping the devil. Run. Endure. Go all the way. You won't regret it. Amen? Let's pray.